Welcome to the Armada Podcast with your host, Laurent.
So what is the wildest misinterpretation of rules that you've ever come across, and why was it Mac?
Fox Omega.
As much as I love separatists, I've said this before on the podcast, I think ARCs are the best squadrons in the game, period.
And Juliet Whiskey.
Come here and talk to this guy.
Yes, my liege. Yes. It's a question. Prime Director Karneck, are you there, sir?
And now, the Armada Podcast.
What is up, all you admirals out there? Coming from the bridge of the Recusant, it is I, Juliet Whiskey, with our wonderful co-host, Fox, right hand of God Omega. This is where you're supposed to say, like, hello, hi, something, tacos, Tuesday.
I was looking out the window in case there was a lightning bolt about to come through. But yeah, I'm here. Here I am.
Paul, the champion of the Walmart Fight Club off of 51st and Menchaca. Remember, no one talks about Fight Club. Corn.
Okay, that's a little better than last week. I'll take it that. Like, the only murder that's happened around here, and it was in a Walmart parking lot over like a TV or something. So I don't know.
Oh god, that's so horrible. That's terrible. No. Oh god.
And he didn't say he didn't do it. So
oh god, oh, please don't knock on our doors. And our special guest, interviewee, the Prime Director, Karneck.
Hey, Armada Podcast. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you for joining us. So, gentlemen, you know how this always goes, and so do you out there in Listen Land, TV Land, Taco Land, Land of Lands. How's everybody doing this week? It's been a week. We haven't chit-chatted. What's been going on? What have you all been up to?
College football's back, so I'm perfectly happy. I'm a massive college football junkie, so I was watching the backyard brawl while I was waiting for this to start.
Well, what's your team?
I went to Iowa State, so I'm a big Cyclones fan, but nobody around here wants to hear that.
Yeah, nobody around here wants to hear that.
No, we don't. We really don't. Yeah, you can just stop with that.
That's horrible.
I'm excited when they put the baskets in the field goals.
See, Karneck is speaking my language. Let's go.
Doing the athletic maneuvers. Yeah, I like that.
I'm sorry for bringing up sports ball on a nerd podcast, but what can I say?
Sports ball, disgusting, hideous. Karneck, what have you been up to over the past week? If you can expunge about it. If you don't know, Karneck is the squirreliest of secret squirrels of the squirrel secrets.
It's not very difficult to know what's up with me. I'm typically easy to find on Facebooks or Discords, typically answering rules questions even. I actually quit my job last week, so I've been focusing full-time on my new business for event managing, coordination, and planning.
Ooh,
wow, congratulations.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to definitely get that shout out at the end for your business so we can put it on everything. So, drive some, what's the words? Drive leads? Yeah, drive leads.
That social networking.
Oh, most definitely. And Fox, you still have not yet to answer. Did you get struck by lightning again, Fox? Is your Fisher Price router okay?
No,
what have you been doing the past week?
What have I been doing? I've been doing some damage control after you lied to your wife and my wife about going to Kalorn's football party this weekend. So
I didn't lie.
Oh, no.
I didn't lie.
I'm about to tell this story. Here we go. Because
oh no,
I haven't heard the story yet. Just to be clear, I have not heard the story yet, so I am all ears.
So,
oh Lord,
my company is opening a location. I work for a burger restaurant, and we're opening a location in the UT football stadium. And Kalorn, he's doing he invited me and Juliet to a party this weekend for like the first day of college football. Well, obviously I can't go. And I tried to make that clear to everyone present. You, Karneck, you weren't involved, but you can come if you want, I guess.
I'm a little far.
Oh yeah, no, you're totally welcome, Karneck. It's a little far though.
But I get a call from my wife today in the middle of the day, and she goes, "Hey, what is this football party that I'm hearing about?" And I said, football party? What are you talking about? And she said, "Yeah, Juliet Whiskey's wife is calling me saying that you and Juliet Whiskey are going to a football party by Kjellorn. And I was like, there is a 0% chance I said that, and you knew about this, and I told you that I can't go.
I forgot. Okay, look. Okay, you know how Karneck was just talking about business. I'm over here trying to get a book business off the ground. I have a lot going on day to day, and so I was just like, it was a passing thought. I'm like, Crud, what are we doing this weekend? Oh Lord, Kjellorn's party. Go talk to wife now. And freaking all that happened.
I just think it's hilarious that somehow that Fox got in trouble for something that Jovan did. That's all.
I'm going to shut up now. We're getting way off the rails. Anyways, welcome to the Armada Podcast. You know how this goes. Once a week, we have somebody special on, or it's just us three people sitting here chit-chatting about Armada Podcast stuff. On today's episode, we are going to do the Prime Director Karneck's interview, rules, and things we want to know. So we're going to be asking Karneck a lot of questions. And, of course, my favorite segment, Hot Take 30. So, from here, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our hostess with the mostest, Fox, the right hand of God, Omega.
Holy cow. All right. I do have the mostest. Karneck, what an honor to have you here. I have a couple preliminary questions before we get into some of the crazy rules questions we've got, just about yourself, because you're one of those people that's like larger than life on the Discords. Like you ask a rules question and you just come out of nowhere with like the right jargon. Well, we're going to get right to the heart of who you are, okay, by asking how long have you been playing Armada?
Sure. Right to the heart of it. How long has this guy been around? Boy, I know for some people there's a lot of overlap, especially with Armada community, so you likely have heard some of these answers before, but that's okay. I like talking about myself, and I won't shut up about myself either. I started Armada in 2016 right as the Pelta and Archidans released in Krellian Conflict, and actually I was reminded by Facebook today, my very first tournament convention was Nova Open in 2017. Where I ruled the bottom bracket in last place of an Iron Fist for every single round back then. So I've been playing Armada for a little while.
Nice. Ruling with an Iron Fist from the bottom. Yeah, I mean, you were determining the leaderboard is what's happening. Like you were pushing the people up. That's the way you got to think of it.
So there's got to be a baseline somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
We should be clear that those crazy guys in Nova are playing right now, and we will be talking about that probably next week or the week after.
Yep, probably. All right. Well, so you've been playing for about 5 years now. What would you say, 6 years? What would you say is your play style then?
Definitely, I lean more towards squadrons in my fleets. It's pretty rare if I run squadron-less. I'm typically not an MSU player. No, I play fast now with squadrons. I'm not a slow player, as I don't get in decision paralysis as I used to. A lot of new players do get trapped in that. I typically will play aggressive fleets. I like just being in my face of my opponent, throwing a bunch of dice. I don't like being like squirrely and running around or anything like that. I try to make sure I'm having fun with my games. Again, when you play competitively, yeah, you're there to win to win the tournament. I get it. But for me, I just like going in and throwing fistfuls of dice and watching stuff explode and making the sound effects. Pew, 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 pew.
That actually sounds exactly like my mentality, except for one thing. Why all these goddamn squadrons in my ship game? This is not how this is supposed to. No, but in all seriousness, squadrons, I am horrible with squadrons. Me and squadrons don't get along. Me and squadrons are like oil and water. So if you had a tip to throw out there for people trying to, get a little bit more gooder with squadrons, what would you say?
I mean, it just really depends on your play style. Are you a player who likes to sit and wait and watch, an enemy alpha into you? You probably will like Rebels or Army of the Republic. Are you somebody who wants to be aggressive, where you want to like throw your squadrons at your enemy? That's definitely Empire or Separatists. So I don't really have any play tips other than you just kind of have to know where your strengths lie, and you have to figure out for yourself the kind of composition that you enjoy. Like, for example, I suck with bombers. I cannot bomb with bombers that isn't Merrick Steele or Darth Vader to save my life. So I typically like just throwing a bunch of TIE interceptors at things and just killing other people's squadron balls.
That's legit. Okay. Well, now that you're given some advice, what would you say if you could give advice to the you starting the game? What would it be?
Oh, that is a difficult one to answer. Probably the advice I would give is stop over measuring and taking too much time measuring. It doesn't matter. Throw your squadrons in, throw the blue dice, just get on with it. You don't need to. That's one thing that will really slow down games, and especially when I first started, it really slowed down my play, was just taking too much time measuring to have the perfect everything. And at the end of the day, you don't have the time for that, especially in a competitive environment. You just kind of have to go with a plan of action, commit to it, and just hope for the best.
Really good advice. Yeah, like a lot, and honestly, a lot of squadron play, especially when you're first engaging, it happens at the very, very end of your movement tool. I find, or like your distance tool, like. So you know where you're going. Like, just go ahead and get there. Like, don't fiddle around with it. Like, just get in there and start rolling dice. No, that's great advice. Okay. Well, Karneck, you've got a pretty big. Speaking of your new venture into event coordination and management and stuff like that, you've got a big event that was just announced coming up. Golden State Games, right?
Yeah.
So you want to plug that a little bit?
If you don't mind, I want to plug one other event before Golden State Games, and that's the St. Lawrence Open. That's going to be Montreal, Canada, just because I want to make sure, even though they are completely booked and sold out, still want to give a shout out that they got an event in Canada, World Qualifying event. But for Golden State Games, it was a very near thing. There definitely was a bit of back and forth, but we are very excited that Atomic Mass Games went with us and wanted to have us host this event in San Francisco. And really the drive behind it wasn't really me. I've definitely been helpful in a lot of aspects getting Golden State Games where it is, but it still was the passionate players in those communities banding together and pitching that idea to AMG. I just kind of helped fill in some of the holes that they had. So where is Golden State Games? What's going on with that? It is a world qualifying event. It is for Armada, Legion, and X-Wing. We have a building capacity for up to 200 players. We are looking for at least, we would love to get over 100. We're definitely getting very close to that number. We've got a lot of X-Wing signups. We definitely could use some more Armada and Legion players to get a really good pool going. And that is November 5th and 6th at the Coscata. Oh, gosh, I am butchering this name.
It's Antioch, right? The Contra Costa?
Yeah, Contra Costa. Oh, my gosh.
So Contra Costa County.
Yes. I thought I had the packet open with the information. I accidentally closed it. Yes, the Contra Costa County Fairgrounds. There we go. The Triple CF.
I knew this. I knew this. I actually used to live there, so I'm just giving you shit.
No, that's good because I thought I was ready and I wasn't, and that's typically how I roll. So the initial tickets for the event, so we are in our early bird special, which does end September 30th. So the early bird pricing right now is essentially $67 because it's $65 ticket plus processing fees. But we've been throwing tons and tons of $5 off discount codes out everywhere, which for specifically that we've given for the Armada podcast, that code is the number 5, so 5 off GSG and then 02. They'll make sure that they're getting that all marketed out. My people will talk to their people. They'll sort that out. But again, if you apply that and with the early bird discounting, October 1st, our prices do raise to essentially $77. And I know a lot of people have asked, like, why did you increase prices? We're like, well, there's a reason for that, because at some point we have to lock in a bunch of our rentals and our rates and everything. And then trying to do that a month out, those companies that we rent from, they charge what's called expedited fees, right? Where they're charging you because you're so close to the event and you're having to use their resources. They will charge you more money because you're closer to your event. So sometimes it's not the case, but a lot of these rental companies, that's how they make their big bucks, because if you're in a rush, they're going to charge you for it. So we're really trying to encourage people to sign up now while we've got all the discounting going on. Another thing, too, is that you're not only getting the World Qualifier event for the game that you're choosing, almost all of your Sunday events are included in that. Most of the times you have to pay extra for any side events. We're throwing those in free of charge. We're also dedicated a portion of our budget to getting additional prizes besides what's in the kits. So you're going to have prizes for when you come to play in the World Qualifier. There's going to be prizes for any of the side events you choose to play in. And, we're really trying to give a whole lot of value with this compared to what you might see at some other venues.
So just because I like stirring the pot and ensuing chaos. So you got Legion, you got X-Wing, and you got Armada all there. Now, of course, we all love these games. This isn't really a shot at anybody. So put down your torch and pitchforks, folks. Which game's the bottom of the barrel and which game's the top? What's the cream of the crop and what's sinking to the bottom? Give me.
To make sure I'm understanding the question, you're wanting to know what game is selling the most tickets, or just in general, what game do I feel like is not doing as well?
Both.
So actually, yes, I'm actually really surprised. X-Wing is leading the pack on this, which historically a lot of the other venues across the country the past 6 months, X-Wing has really suffered in ticket sales. We have gotten, I believe, over 50 signups for X-Wing. And Legion and Armada, last I checked, are actually both tied at close to 20. So we're actually getting as much of the turnout as we'd like to see, and we hope to get more.
Admirals, you heard that. We are tied with the Legionnaires. I am disappointed in you all. We will begin the floggings at 3 a.m. sharp, followed by an immediate bath in the tar pits. There better be more signups. So go click on the link down below and get your $5 discount code today.
This is the ridiculousness that we go with here, Karneck. So welcome to the party.
I'm enjoying it. I like the back and forth that we've got going on here.
So I think we're going to kick it over to Fox to kick off our questions here about kind of the rules and your little niche.
No questions. No questions.
No questions? Oh, well, then I guess we just end the podcast here, right?
Cut the podcast, we're out.
All
right, Fox, take us away.
Yeah, his whole life is questions, so he's just a questioning individual. Okay, so we consolidated a bunch of questions that we have for you about rules interactions, spirit of the rules, all that jazz, things we want to know as far as your position in the community in general. And so the first question I want to ask is kind of like, I think it's a good place to start, is what would you say is the spirit of the rules or the game? Because obviously you haven't memorized the rule book, but like, what are some of the...
That's a big assumption.
It's a good assumption, yeah. I mean, maybe you have. I don't know.
No, that's a big assumption.
Oh, it's a big assumption that you haven't memorized it? Oh, shoot. Well, maybe this question isn't good then. What are some of the hard, fast rules rules of thumb that you have to answer quickly? Like, what is the spirit of the rule book?
Sure. And before I answer this, I always have to give this preference just because of I'm required to. So I am, to be upfront, I am a subcontracted employee of Atomic Mass Games. That means I do work for, but I'm not employed by Atomic Mass Games. This means I do not speak for Atomic Mass Games. I do not represent Atomic Mass Games. I am not Atomic Mass Games. I'm only speaking for myself. So to answer your question, the spirit of the game, of the rules, the developers, I feel, did a phenomenal job at developing a relatively compact game that at the surface, it takes a little bit to dig into, but once you get past that cold little breath of just shock of it seems like it's a lot of rules, and as you start playing, it's just very easy to just sink in and just really enjoy yourself and just start having a great time, I feel like. And the spirit, I feel, is that it's to have fun and enjoy yourself. It's not to go through and look specifically for a certain like little interaction that you try to twist to break the game or bend the rules in such a fashion that when you review the rest of it, you pretty much already know the answer when you're like, oh, hey, can I do this? Because if I bend these 5 different rules to make this one new rule, I can do this. And that's
we don't know anybody
not
like
it.
that. I mean, we don't know anybody like that, Karneck. There's literally not anybody on Discord that does that.
No, nobody. So, like, that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, if you had to bend 5 or 6 different rules to try to at least get a small footing of ground to stand on, like, you need to reevaluate kind of like the thought process you took to get to this point. And sometimes I do concede that they might have an interesting fact or point about something, but typically when you take everything in conjunction and look at the rest of the game, you're like, obviously this is not the intent. You can't bend the rules in such a fashion, which is why I'm glad now that we do have the active feedback of the Atomic Mass Games rules forum. We can get that immediate feedback right away. Man, so for the rule book, I don't have it memorized, but I know practically, like, if you give me like a topic or a keyword, I usually know immediately where to look it up or find it. For rules of thumb for how I get to answer so quickly is, again, I just keep in mind certain keywords or key aspects of like upgrade cards, and some of them are very redundant in that one thing leads to another, so I'm able to actually just kind of keep that memorized in my brain, or at least know exactly where in the rule book to look that up to expound on that knowledge, right?
Yeah, and I want to dig in there. What do you mean by that? What are some specific, like, interactions, keywords, like orders of events that you find are redundant in the game and help you arrive at like rules interactions really quickly? Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. By and large, most of the interactions that people get caught up on is the effects use and timing. Effects use and timing is the hardest part of Armada to kind of like grasp your brain around. But once you firmly understand how that's being applied to upgrade cards, to interactions between either ships or squadrons, etc., everything just kind of falls in place from there. So, for example, somebody asked me, I have Corvus and I have surprise attack actually, this is actually a really good example. Let me give you an even better one. Let me ask you this question. So in surprise attack, let's say that you are first player and you have Hondo, and I'm second player that also has Hondo, and I also have the surprise attack raid dials. Which goes first?
First player Hondo.
Right. But when do I reveal my surprise attack raid dial?
After I'm done with my start of turn stuff, right?
That's correct. So it's something like that. A lot of people are like, oh no, you have to reveal your second player raid dial first. And like, nope, you have to resolve Hondo first before, as second player, I reveal my raid dial. And again,
it's funny you say that, Karneck, because this literally came up in a game that I played last week with Radis, and it was even more complicated because I picked his surprise attack, put my Radis ship as far forward as I could, and dropped at the beginning of turn 1. And then we had to do my Hondo, and then he revealed the dials, and then he had the option to do his Hondo, and he ended up not needing it because I gave him the token that he needed for his for his Cataclysm. It was wild, but took us a minute to get through exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just all comes back to a lot of people get caught up like, oh, if I do my card, then you do your card, and then it's back to me. It's like, no. It is always first player first with everything, followed by second player, unless otherwise specified, right? So I'd say that's one example of what the question you're asking me.
So since actually, hold on, let me rephrase how I'm coming at this question. Excuse me, Prime Director, sir. I have a question since Fox Omega, since he answered your question correctly, do we get another $5 off coupon? Sir, please don't hurt me.
Wow.
I don't even know where to go with this. Fox, what have you done?
Here. This is my purpose.
His purpose is to be a gremlin in the corner and wait to crack jokes. I love it. All right. So, okay. Answer that spirit of the games question. So let's talk about the game has gone through some evolutions, some erratas. What are some things that have been errated that were done so because they eventually violated the spirit of the game or the spirit of the rule book, like making things easy to follow, or like you said, or just make gameplay really straightforward and simple. Are there any clear examples of that?
Yeah, I don't think anything has been errated because it violated the spirit of the game, but definitely some upgrade cards have been errated because they didn't work quite as they were worded or as clearly as they could be worded. The best example of this would be Moff Jerjerrod, in that it was on the initial reading of the card, you're like, oh, so I can just do this card at the beginning of the game, but my ship hasn't activated, but somehow I can track that it's done this maneuver at this current speed, but if I change speeds and then take another damage, so then at speed 2, but then also at speed 3 I can do it, but if I drop to speed 1, then I can't do it unless I take another.
Please
just
stop.
like,
It hurts. It hurts.
yeah,
Please stop.
it blew my brain apart trying to follow. It pretty much was just like, this is too complicated. It just needs to be simpler. And so it was errated, just be once per maneuver, done. You don't have to worry about tracking all that kind of really complex mechanics anymore. And then also doing that eliminated all these other very niche knock-on effects of interactions that just ultimately just became too complicated. So that would be the most clear-cut example I can think of.
I always come back to the engine text 1.5
Oh,
revamp,
geez, yeah.
and how all that just did not go the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I wish I had been able to see what they initially wanted to change the card to, because I just been like, yo, guys, this doesn't work. Because as soon as I saw engine text, I'm like, this card does not work as intended.
Alrighty, well, let's move on, and I want to move into, you actually run a fair number of pretty high level tournaments, and in doing so, what was kind of the hardest ruling that you've had to make on the day of in the spotlight of like a tournament setting that may have actually had an effect on like a tournament, who was going to win and who was going to lose the tournament?
That is a really good question. So I'm making the assumption you're not meaning like a call in the moment, like a range or distance check. You actually mean
no. I'm talking about like a rules interaction, and I think we should be clear that we want to keep it anonymous, so we don't like have anybody coming for our throats. But yeah, definitely a rules interaction type of thing.
Wait, I'm down for fights.
I personally haven't had anything as difficult as that, because luckily enough, most questions got answered. So back when I was going to run Worlds 2020, I did do a really heavy push to get like a lot of unanswered questions answered by the developers leading up to Worlds, which we got that email. So luckily that was taken care of before the event. Otherwise, I was going to I'm running this event as a judge, like these are going to be my decisions, and I would have had to reach that point. But as for another event, I think the only time I had to be like, this is how a card is going to play is, before engine text got errated. It's like, this is the intent of engine text, which most people already knew that and were fine with. I don't think I ever made a rules decision that has ever affected somebody's fleet before play. I don't recall any instances of that, unless you all know of something. Maybe I feel like I'm getting back to the corner here.
He's sweating. Hurry, jump on him. Why did everybody else go mute? Okay, fine. I'll ask the next question. All right. So going in a little bit of a different direction, I gotta know. I like when things are weird. I like when you look at the table and your brain starts oozing out your ear a little bit. So what is the most unusual rules interaction in Armada?
That is, there's always so many, right? Just these little niche things that just come up. Probably the initially was the the officer Ahsoka card for Republic and flight controllers, because somebody actually did math it or lay it all out to you could resolve flight controllers twice to get 2 dice on a snipe attack, and I was just like, wow, that, and they laid it out very in a very valid manner and showed all their steps. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's crazy that works that way. But and that kind of what led to the errata on flight controllers, is because we realized the timing on it was too open-ended. So that's one of the most unusual interactions. Before Moff Jerjerrod got errated, they definitely, hands down, had the most crazy things going on, where you could do Moff Jerjerrod at speed 3, but then you could drop to speed 1, but then you could also have T going, and then you could make your S. You could do these crazy things just because, again, you could speed jank with Moff Jerjerrod resolving at multiple different speeds. It led to a lot of crazy rabbit holes there. For other unusual rules interactions, we're just really fortunate that Armada is really well written, and we have already a lot of explanations in place that kind of like already establish precedent of like how things work.
I will say, as a rookie coming in, and like when I came in, I was looking for a tabletop to play. Like I'd always like followed Warhammer 40K forever, and I think a lot of people do. But just walking into it, I'm like, man, that looks like a lot of just jank rules, like just a bunch of random rules. I'm just here to chunk some dice and make poor choices. Then Fox was all like, hey, come nerd with me over here at this table. And I met him again, and he was like, hey, nerd with me in my house. And I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, I feel that. Fox, are you taking this next question, or are we gonna have to pull you out of the dungeon? Did you get hit by lightning again?
It is thundering outside right now, but no, I haven't been hit yet. Speaking of lightning, no, this isn't speaking of lightning. That was a dumb segue.
That was a horrible pivot. That was bad.
Speaking of terrible segues.
Speaking of awful segues, here we go.
Guys, you're everybody's going to have to hear Fox's awkward segue.
Speaking of awful segues, what has, for you, what has been the impact for 1.5 overall? Do you think majority of these were positive improvements? Do you think maybe some of the negative or maybe some of the changes have kind of outweighed into like the negative realm? Like, how do you feel the general impact of 1.5 has been?
This is a very difficult question. I think of all of these, this is the one that I think I spent like the most thought on. And ultimately, I will say 1.5 had a clear vision of what it wanted to accomplish. And I don't know if the full vision of what it was trying to achieve was maybe somehow not finished completely, or there were other aspects that were supposed to be followed on from this rule update that didn't happen. To me, it seems like 1.5 was a jump into more. And then, of course, as soon as the 1.5 update dropped, we know the transition from FFG to AMG happened. So it seems like there's a lot there, but there was supposed to have been more. And a lot of the changes were definitely for the betterment of the game. But as we've seen, because we haven't had what I feel like was maybe some additional development that was supposed to follow on from 1.5, some things still seem like it's not quite in sync. Probably the clearest example is the black dice right now. It's so hard to land those hit crits to resolve the criticals for those kinds of upgrade cards, the ordnance upgrade cards, because evade is very strong combined with, as we've seen, the PDIC, and it's just really difficult to kind of get those aspects to stick, especially when it comes to like single black dice bombers are just having a really rough time right now. I think the rest of 1.5 has been very positive. A lot of these different documents or rules answers, they took and consolidated a bunch of it into RNG. We're not having to look up in like 3 or 4 different places now. So that was very nice. And then again, just a lot of quality of life updates as in upgrades as well. But pretty much that was the biggest thing for me, is the evade. Some of the evade changes or some of the changes to the ordnance upgrade cards might have been a bit too much. That's personal opinion. Again, I'm not speaking, for any company or any of the developers. I definitely would like to see that revisited someday, I hope. I think overall 1.5 was received really well, though.
It's interesting you talk about that you thought that there was supposed to be additional development. I remember in one of the Q&A sessions that FFG did prior to, they were kind of like rolling out the 1.5 rules. They specified that in the future they intended the kind of the points to be living points, and that the points on the card would always be good for casual games, but there might at some point be points adjustments that were for tournament rules. And I always felt like that was they were trying to follow X-Wing in a way, if that makes sense. And having come from playing X-Wing before Armada, I thought that might have been an interesting way to go. And I don't know that that's ever going to happen at this point, but I was encouraged when they said that originally.
Yeah, I remember that. And I agree with you that, as I mentioned already, that I feel like there were supposed to be some additional changes that just haven't quite made it out yet. And I don't know what Atomic Mass Games plans are. If I do know, I can't say. It's just that they definitely have been taking their time to learn and understand everything about Armada, and I'm definitely happy that they are wanting to take their time instead of just kind of jumping right on in. So we can always hope that Atomic Mass Games will evaluate that and find time to want to do that in the future. In the meantime, I'm very happy with the content they are attempting to put out, which is, we got rapid reinforcements. They're doing the best they can to hold these world qualifiers, get the world tournaments going. And of course, they've been briefly hinting about this organized play kit that I am very excited that will release whenever they deem it on their timeline to release. So it's like you said, I definitely want to see like more of these like point adjustments for tournament play, like you mentioned. I think that really would breathe a lot of my life into the meta. But at the same time, I do feel like Armada is in a good enough place that nothing is too broken, but there's always room for improvement, and that will never end.
Yeah, that was, everything you just said about 1.5, literally until what you just stopped right there. That was probably one of the more reasoned, well-informed, and realistically optimistic responses to 1.5 and the current release pattern and schedule and strategy from AMG. Like I think that's exactly how I feel, and I feel like sometimes we get caught up online, just not being negative Nancy's, but we want to see the worst in something that we love. Like we all really value this game, and we want it to succeed, and we want it to continue. We want it to be like the primary thing that's getting worked on. But everything you just described, things are happening. Exciting things are happening. 1.5, I like how you described 1.5 had a vision, and it obviously reached to achieve it. Whether it did or not is definitely up in the air. But that was an awesome answer. Yeah.
All I know is I'm waiting for the rest of my Gar fleet.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah.
I'm still over here just like, I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but I went grocery shopping, I came home, and now I know something's just not here.
Yeah, it wasn't the victory as much as that was fun to kind of get.
Yep.
Yeah, Anakin and Delta was a pretty big get for them, though, I have to say. Like, that has been a really much bigger impact than I think that some people may have expected when that first came out.
Gar Pelta is just perfect.
Oh God, they're so annoying. Oh, we already had a conversation about this, but there's some guy that wants to run a 5 Pelta list with one of the upcoming tournaments, and I just want to murder him already. And I haven't even seen the fleet on the table. So I guess I wanted to talk about the next question. And so, what is the wildest misinterpretation of rules that you've ever come across, and why was it Mac?
Oh, why'd you gotta call Mac out like that? Wow.
Because he's getting right now, and he can't see, so he can't actually say anything.
Oh, poor Mac. It's so. No, that makes me laugh. So definitely Mac brings me a lot of interesting thoughts and ideas. One of the biggest misinterpretations to this day, and we've been going on however many years now, and this was like one of the very first questions ever answered, is so when I concentrate fire, I can add my dice in one attack, and then on my next attack I can re-roll a die, right? Like concentrate fires to this day still remains one of the most misinterpreted commands out of all of the commands in Armada. Like, no, that's the one I definitely have to correct the most people on often and all the time.
This one kills me. I'm glad you said that. Oh my gosh, it's all the time. Yeah.
It's interesting because like there's so many things that go into it as well. Like you can tie in the intel officer problems and why people miss the window on intel and how they miss it. Ties right into this concentrate fire. And then we had the conversation about if you concentrate fire with the dial and the token, do you have to do it consecutively before you move on to another thing? Because so many people I know will concentrate fire in a black, re-roll with ordnance experts, and then want to use their concentrate fire token.
Right.
And you can't do that.
Can't do it. Nope.
And this is why I have them around, because I'm still going to ask that exact same question even after we've had this entire conversation.
It is probably the most asked question in the rules.
It is.
Channel.
I've had veteran players who I know that they know the rule, and they'll be like getting ready to pick up their dice, and they'll stop and like, wait a minute, I forget how this works. Can you just tell me again real quick? And I'll have to tell even veteran players like how it works so they don't mess up their attack effects.
So you heard that, rookies. So don't be anxious when you have to ask the well-known question 1,000,005 times. And speaking of rookie players, what that actually is not even rookie players. See, I just pulled a freaking fox. I just told you
It's a rookie mistake.
It was a rookie mistake. See, Karneck gets it. We're kidnapping him too. He's now officially living with us. He's on the RecuCent with us. He now lives here. This is his permanent home. What do you appreciate players doing in their games that makes your job? As I say that too many times at work, whenever my boss gives me any type of task. Roger. Yeah, I got to stop that. Sorry. What do you appreciate players doing in their games that makes your job as a TO all the easier?
Keeping track of your game state. Oh, please. I know the rules say you can't take notes. And what it means is you just can't take notes like they did this and they did this, and you're like slowing the game down, like tracking everything you're doing or the opponent's doing. It is absolutely okay. Like when you move a squadron to be in range of another squadron, if you think that squadron is going to get bumped or moved around because there's a lot going on, totally okay to write down your agreement, because there will be players, and this has happened to me, I'm guilty of it too, where I think I put something in range, things get knocked around, and now it's out of range, and the other player, I'm like, oh, didn't we agree that was in range? And the other player's like, I don't remember, a lot has happened since then. And they're not being malicious or anything about it. They just don't remember, or I don't remember. And so now we have this confliction of, we thought the squadron was in range and now it's not. And it's okay to make a video recording. Just pop out your phone real quick, being like, hey, we're both agreeing this is in range, or just writing it down. Same thing with like if you're activating, like with Akbar, if you just want to make a note like, oh yeah, this ship had Akbar'd, this ship hasn't Akbar'd, that kind of stuff. Keeping track of game state. So that way when I walk up as a judge, I have to go by what I can see in that moment, because obviously I'm not there watching your game 24/7, making notes about what has or hasn't happened, right? So just, it's okay to take notes if that's what's needed to keep track of your game state to ensure that there's no issues there.
Karneck, I just want to... as soon as you started talking about this, I was thinking about last year at LSO with those tables that were uneven.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And like the ships would just like, I had a Providence that was on the station on the where the table was, like, and it just spun like a top.
Yeah.
And so we got into the habit of like, anytime that we would move a ship, we would put it down, and then my opponent and I would agree that this ship is in this range with this shot. Because we knew it was going to change before we would ever get back to it.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is always okay. Like that's always okay to do.
It happened this year too with the squads. Like you'd put it on the little space rift that we had in the middle of the table, and they would just slide down the edge of the table. And then you'd look, you make eye contact with your opponent. You'd be like, "Hey, we both saw that, right? Because this is crazy." Yeah, no, I absolutely. To the point where, like, if you need a TO to come over and like maybe they need to get onto the table to get like a good view, like, you and your opponent can have an agreement like, hey, this is how it's.
You take a picture of it.
Take a picture of it, and now you're famous.
The selfie stick, baby. Selfie stick. We're sitting there. We're taking a video, doing duck faces, whole shebang. Star Wars.
Oh, I actually just remembered. So one thing that was just recently changed in the tournament regulations, and this is definitely like one of those, man, this felt really bad in the moment. So one of the changes in the tournament regs from the last version was put out, and this is something that I advocated for, and this was changed, was at a tournament at LVO, there was a player who was playing who had taken the model off a ship to get better ranging right, but not only did they just take the model off, they took their ship stand off too. And I, not thinking about it in the moment, stuck my hand down to try to hold down the cardboard on the ship, and then when I put my hand on it, it shifted the cardboard on the base forward. So then I already, right then and there, I screwed game state up because I shifted the cardboard on the ship base. So the new rule is if you take models off the pegs, you have to leave the pegs in. No ifs, ands, or buts, because that's what's holding your cardboard down so it doesn't shift underneath your peg. Because if you take the peg off, you can move the cardboard around freely within the ship base.
Well, I wouldn't even feel too bad about that on your side, because like removing the peg itself is going to shift that cardboard. You know what I mean? Like, so there's, but that's a really good rule. Like, there's so many instances where, like, I mean, you could probably speak to this as a TO. A majority of the things that you're doing, like in like a top cut, is you're mostly doing measurements. You know what I mean? Like, you're making sure things are in range or in arc. Like, those little movements make a really, really big deal. So yeah, no, exactly.
Well, for the player in question who took the ship stand off their ship, and when I adjusted his cardboard, it was for a double arc check, and when I shifted it, it completely you shift it one way, it's out of arc. You shift another way, it is arc, and it was like on one of those like fine tooth comb edges already that I just went, yo man, I moved this due to the fact that you took the ship stand off and this caused this to happen. I'm going to just rule that there is no double arc, because there's literally no way I could have checked beforehand otherwise. So like, I'm not trying to beat up on your opponent. I get that you didn't realize that was going to happen either, but like now you know, like my intent is if stuff like that happens, never punish the defender. In most situations, again, it all just kind of depends, but I'm never going to punish the defender for something in that kind of a situation, if that makes sense.
I would have imploded on myself if that was the situation. A double arc on a fine tooth comb. Do you know how hard it is for me to get a double arc on a fine tooth comb? And you're just taking it?
Julia would have been like, "This is my first double arc. Don't take it away from me now."
So I do want to talk about TOing at kind of like premier level events for a second here, Karneck. And what's kind of different about running a premier level event, and what do you have for advice for people who are TOing premier level events? Or because I mean, a lot of us, like Fox and I, have run store events, and there's lots of people that have run store events here in Texas. We've been trying to run the Texas series and have more serious events. Last year you ran LSO. It was part of the Texas series. And then we had a couple of other events that were run by the gentleman down in Houston. What advice would you have for people that are going into, we're going to have premier level events? Because I really do feel like there's been kind of a changing of the guard of the people that are running Armada events pre-COVID versus post-COVID.
Yeah. If you guys have seen Thor Ragnarok, that part where Thor is talking to Loki in the elevator, and he's like, "We need to get help," and Loki is like, "Oh no!" Like that's you need to get help. You definitely having a second person to help assist you, whether that be with inputting scores or just helping with tables in general. Like for myself, I'm at a level where I can reasonably handle 50 players or so without too much hassle. We're lucky that Armada, the community, is so great that we don't need a ton of judges running around for this kind of stuff. Where everyone's pretty casual and being able to work it out themselves. So it's just nice to have that help for those instances, though, and especially if it's somebody who's wanting to learn, even if they're brand new, like just taking them on under your wing just to get them that experience. For like premier events, the most advice, or not even the best advice I can give is do your best, and don't worry about what minor detail you may or may not have forgotten that your players were expecting. You're not going to remember everything. I don't remember everything. I make a good showing that I seem like I know what I'm doing all the time, but there are definitely instances where it's like, oh no, I didn't do this right, or I inputted that score wrong. Quickly, I need to fix it. And you just don't sweat the small stuff. I know that can be really hard in the moment. You might feel stressed out, but know that all the players there are there to have a fun and a good time. And as long as you're not being the reason for why they're not having a good time, they're not going to like watch over your shoulder and criticize you on every mistake that you make. But be open that if they do have criticisms, listening to what those are, because it's only going to help you to learn and better yourself for the next event. And in general, for running events, it's just keeping track of scores and like you said, making those range and distance check calls, it's going to be really rare you're going to get some rules interaction of a stumper that you can't figure out.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult, or you get into your head a lot whenever you're trying to run these types of big events, and I think that's great advice. Like, don't it's we joked earlier that you admit the whole rules book memorized, but like it's true. Like, no one has the whole thing memorized. Don't sweat the small stuff. Make sure you maintain the integrity of the game with your rulings. And with that segue, I did a good one that time. I have a question about. I did a good job. I did.
You did a good job.
Speaking of the integrity of Armada, this has come up a couple times now in the past few months, and it's just something that I would like to talk about, like on the podcast openly with you. Collaboration. What is that, and how does that affect the integrity of Armada?
This is by far one of the hardest things to nail down. And I mean, there's the clear-cut example of like, collaboration. It's when 2 or 3 people enter a tournament together and be like, okay, if we play each other, I'm just going to throw my game and you're going to get 10 points. And then, if we play each other again, I'm going to throw my game again. Like, that's obvious clear-cut collaboration. Like, there's no question on when there's a malicious intent behind it. There's other forms of collaboration that sometimes is unintentional, where a player is like, oh no, I'm losing, but I'm tilting and I'm just mad, so I'm just going to throw all of my ships at this player and just feed all my points into this player. And again, that's more of a gray line of, it's not collaboration, but if you just went from what would have only been, maybe an 8-4 win for this guy, now it's a 10-1 because you just fed him the rest of your fleet, that's not really fair to the rest of your competitors at other tables of the event who are doing their best to also place first. And, I always tell people, play the game, play to win, play to the best of your ability, but don't intentionally throw your game or get mad that you're losing and throw away the rest of your points, because that does affect, as you said, the integrity of the event. There actually is a real life example I want to give of unintentional collusion that actually was not. When I finally dug into the details, I learned that it all resulted from just misunderstanding. There were these 2 players. I'm not going to say event, not going to say any names. There were 2 players. They had just finished their 3rd round game. They're getting ready to go into round 4. And both of them like, oh man, I only need X number of points to get in. And oh man, you only need X number of points to get in. Wouldn't it be crazy if we played each other and then we just decided that as long as we don't kill each other, we likely will both get in? And that was a conversation overheard by a 3rd person. Coming to round 4, those 2 players got paired together. Both of them immediately then just tallied up the points, looking around at other tables, and realized that, if they both just don't fight each other, they're going to make top cut. So they deployed away from each other, dropped to speed 0, and both sat on each end of the table for 6 rounds. And the 3rd player then came to me and said, yo, these guys are collaborating. This is what I heard them talking about beforehand. And so that was really, really difficult as a judge to untangle. Look, because I'm not like a cop, right? I'm just a person trying to run an event, but you can see like how that chain of events could be misconstrued for what happened. And so for me, I did end up giving a warning to both of those players, because technically, they were joking around. They're just buds having a good time. But what they said, when you look at the pure fact of what the rule book states, that is collusion. And again, it wasn't like, manipulated from the start. I know they were just joking, which is why I didn't do like disqualification. I just gave warning points. And that's why I just try to tell players is like, when a tournament's going on, don't talk to other players about how many points you think you need to make the cut. Don't talk to other players about, wouldn't it be funny if we just play each other and then not play the game? Like, just don't do it, because you don't know how that might be looked at from a tournament organizer's perspective. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, that's an excellent response. I actually have an example of a proper way to handle that type of situation. Like last year at LSO in the 4th round, I personally had done the math to figure out how many points I needed to get into day 2 And I didn't tell my opponent at all what my plan was, but my plan was just to kill his 2 A-wings and run so that I could get a 6 and guarantee entry. Not communicating to him at all, and he's playing Akbar, so he has his own strategy for how he wants to approach the game, and I kind of let him play that game. And then at the end of the game, when we both shook hands, I told him, like, hey, I know you're disappointed you didn't explode anything of mine, but I did that so that, like, I'm going to end up going to day 2. It looks like because you got a 5, you'll end up going as well. And then he realized what was going on. But the difference there is we both are approaching the game with our own intention, our own strategies. We're not trying to manipulate the tournament at large by working together. Like, I'm trying to get to day 2.
Correct.
He's trying to get to day 2. Like, that's the difference. And I think that's that's a really important distinction.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you that something like that, where you both have your strategies, you're both playing to the best of your ability, that's never going to be collusion, right? It's, you have a strategy to win, you're going to employ that strategy to win. But it, like you said, you didn't tell your opponent what you were doing, and even, like, for example, if your opponent did see what you're doing or even realize themselves, like, even if they keep it neutral, that you both will make it in. But again, as long as that wasn't communicated to each other, that's not collusion. That's just playing the game and understanding that, oh yeah, this is, everyone can do math, right? Like, you can count. So, like, it just gets difficult.
Wait, that's a big assumption.
Oh no!
That everybody can do math. Hold on, sir. Wait a minute.
But yeah, I'm glad that you brought up that point. That's a very good point.
So I did want to get into something real quick. A question for you, Karneck, is you talked about somebody going on tilt and maybe throwing a game away, but I think we've all played against somebody in a tournament or in just a store game, a casual type of game, that they quit the game before they concede the game. So I want to better understand. Like, I was under the impression at a certain point that if you concede a game, that you might be out of the rest of the tournament. Is that not true? Or how did what does conceding a game entail? How is that handled by the TO, and what rights do you have as the person conceding?
Yeah, so concession doesn't mean you're leaving the tournament. A concession is stating that you no longer wish to continue the game. A lot of people have a misconception that they can work out an agreement between themselves, like, oh, it's going to be in 8-4 or 8. Or I keep saying 8-4. It's an 8-3. My bad. So 8-3 or 9-2 or whatever they try to agree on. So, like, these kind of like handshake agreements, those are extremely frowned upon. Like, even if we know what the eventual outcome is going to be, we still encourage people to play the game out. Don't have these handshake agreements, because, again, explicitly in the rules, it is considered collusion if you discuss outcomes before the game is over. For the concessions, though, if a player concedes, so it's either immediately 8 victory points or 8 tournament points and 140 MOV to the other player, and 0 tournament points and 0 MOV to the concessor. Otherwise, if, like, for example, if the other player has more points than that, you do score the higher amount, but no less than the 8 tournament points and 140. So people who want to walk away from a game, they have to concede. Otherwise, they have to play the game out to its completion.
And I guess that's the other thing, is that I've seen people get 3 tournament points for a concession, and they're not supposed to, right?
No, that is not the case at all. No. The 3 points is only a buy.
Well, I appreciate the clarification there. Juliet, you think you got one more question before we go into your favorite segment?
Yes, because I always like throwing monkey wrenches and things. So, Prime Director, the whole purpose of this podcast, the whole purpose that we started this podcast was to kind of help grow the community, get people in, talk about some of the higher level events, and talk about just better ways to play and better ways to think about this game. Now, I've watched your YouTube channel. I enjoy it. It's very wonderful. It's very fun. What's your take on the community right now? From this entire conversation thus far, it seems very positive. But, like, where would you like to see the community go? How would you like to see everybody grow and come together as a community?
Ultimately, I think the community is doing great. Ultimately, I think the community is happy with the progress of where Armada is. But granted, it's okay to be happy with that progress, but you can still have questions or doubts about what the future can hold. And I recognize that the community is often frustrated by lack of news or no new models, no new ships. There's no news on when these potentially might come back. And, the community has done a great job at just staying positive for it, mainly because when they look at X-Wing, they're like, oh, that was a lot of drastic changes for X-Wing that not necessarily we agreed with those. So we're just happy that they're not working on Armada. And ultimately, at the end of the day, there's still some valid criticism that you can direct towards Atomic Mass Games' way. Like I'm not so much of an avid defender that I won't, there's no conversation about what they have done wrong or what they could do better, but recognize the achievements that they have put out or what they have accomplished. And I see the community continuing to enjoy these world events. Atomic Mass Games has been very upfront to saying that there's going to be more events in 2023. They haven't just said this is the last one, or they haven't even said, oh, we don't have any more plans. They have said that they have plans going into 2023 for additional content for organized play. Now, whether that comes down to be the kits or some other kind of activities like the mini extravaganzas, I can't tell you. I'm not privy to their marketing strategy. I just know that they have been upfront in saying that they want to continue doing things with Star Wars Armada. And I hope the community just kind of, it's again to have those criticisms, but understand that they are still doing things for Armada.
I think I think the community is in a great place. Really, that's part of the reason why I kind of jumped into the podcast. That's why I pitched it over to Fox, was like when I came in, I'm like, wow, this community is really in a good place. It has a solid base. It has a solid game. It's fun to play. It's hard, but not too hard. And one of my biggest gripes, even though I watch your channel, I've watched Ion's Radio's channel. Who else does? I know I've watched a bunch of different channels. I've watched a bunch of different channels, but one of my biggest gripes is always kind of like that premiere level event. I could never go anywhere to watch it. Plus, I never actually bugged Fox Omega about it because I always felt bad because I'm always sitting in his pocket. So recently we got hit up by one of the community members, and they're throwing this idea out there of, hey, why don't we do something kind of like, let's do a sports center kind of situation for Armada. Would you like to see something like that? Like, I think it would be cool personally.
There's always been tons of talk about getting more of like that, quote unquote esports into tabletop miniatures. And you laugh, but there is a hunger for it. And it's unfortunate that our ability for people who want to produce that content also want to play in the tournaments, so it's really hard to find people to do it, and I don't blame them. But there are a few dedicated groups that like to do the commentary and the casting, and actually a great way that I feel that this can be accomplished, if somebody already has like their tickets to Worlds, for example, or if it's another event you're trying to qualify, just get some random guy to just come who doesn't even know Armada. Just get them to commentate. It'll be great. You play, they just give random commentary, and then when you get knocked out of the tournament or you proceed, not all of you are going to make it, right? Let's just be honest. That's just the odds. One of you's got to get knocked out, and then you come back and take over, right? So it's like there's ways you can work on these kind of aspects to accomplish what you're looking for. And I think one of the best examples, there's two examples. I think Fifth Trooper has done a great job at getting more into that aspect for Legion, and I think Gold Squadron obviously has been a gold standard for X-Wing for quite a long time as well.
I see what you did there.
I think Armada will have a group like that at some point. Personally, I love watching Armada, but sometimes it is just so boring. It's so boring, guys. It is so boring to watch.
Yeah, that's always been like the biggest. Like every time I think about trying to do something Sports Center I'm just like, Yeah, but those dead spaces, those spaces where you're sitting there staring at the table going, what the heck am I about to do? You can't commentate on that. But we're going to go ahead and pivot into my favorite segment on the planet. It is time for Hot Take 30. So first, we're going to start off with, wait, hold on. Let me go. Hey, let me go get this guy right quick to come back over here. Hey, come here and talk to this guy.
Yes, my liege. Yes. Here's the question. Prime Director Karneck, are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm here, minion.
Yes, sir. Please don't hurt me. It states the question is surprise attack. Is the easiest objective to flip on your opponent? Is this accurate, my lord? Is it?
Surprise! Are you blind? Deploy the garrison!
This is great. It's like acting on this podcast.
So surprise attack, hot take. Are you most often to flip the objective? I feel like that objective gets flipped on me all the time. Like I'll bring it like, this is great, and I try to use it. My opponent's like, didn't bother me at all. Look at all the tokens I have to negate whatever your raid is. I'm like, oh, why did I bring this objective again? Or it's like, I'll bring it and they'll bring like Corvus is just like just so it's never worked for me out very well.
I got a hot take on this one. It's specifically for Fox. Raid sucks.
Oh, wait, he said he wants to fight Fox. You gonna take that?
Yep.
Wow.
He's wrong.
Seriously?
He's wrong.
Seriously?
Let's be honest. Dooku is Dookie.
Dooku will take a fat duke on your fleet. That's what he does. So,
oh Lord, here we go. We're getting into fighting territory. So
surprise,
this is the purpose of hot
deuce.
takes.
Yeah,
surprise. All right, and now for the one that is holier than thou, the Almighty Fox, the right hand of God, Omega. Hyenas are the best generic bombers. Let's not. No.
They're
It's
crazy.
Your question, but my answer is no.
as much as I love separatists, disagree. I think arcs are probably the best bomber. I've said this before on the podcast. I think arcs are the best squadrons in the game, period. But I do love hyenas. I think they're fantastic. They are not as great as people say they are, especially since people like to lean on their damage for their fleet and not actually bring any teeth on their ships to finish up. It's a mistake. Like 4-hull isn't going to get you anywhere. Red dice are finicky. PDICs everywhere. Nope. Hyenas are not.
So, Fox, I was slightly confused because you were saying arcs, but I was thinking Arcadins. I'm like, Arcadins aren't squadrons.
Arcadins are great bombers.
Amazing bombers. 10 out of 10 would bomb again.
They're so good they can bomb from long range. That's how good they are.
Karneck, do you got to take on this one?
I think hyenas, like with a lot of CIS fleets, you want them in small portions. I think that they're great when you have like a pair or 4 of them backed up by Bomber Command Center. I don't think they're great bringing more than that.
Fair enough. And Kalorn, you got something?
I love hyenas. I particularly love is it DFS Fox?
Oh my God! How many times do we have to go?
DBS.
DBS. As in B for you better remember this next time. Oh God.
I do love me some DBS, but man, they can be so finicky. I guess one of the things that I do love about hyenas is that I really love how you can pair them into like having one big Providence activation where you're like, I'm going to throw 4 squads at you. And if, maybe, and they don't all have to be hyenas, but they can slot into that big Provi activation. If you can get like a double arc and throw 4 squads at them, something like that it can be really, really awesome. One day I will remember that B stands for bomber and, we'll just leave it at that.
Fox, I just have to call. Wait, can I say that on air? I can't say that on air. We're supposed to be family friendly. God dang it. Now I'm lost, dazed, and confused. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and move on to, sorry, I had to write this one down just to keep the community appeased. So for Kalorn, let's see, correct, my handwriting's really bad. Kalorn, the 3-time champion of the Atlantic Fast Food Triathlon, Kalorn. Your question is,
let's make this clear.
Food triathlon? What does that entail? That sounds fun.
Fast food triathlon. I don't know. It's on Google. I've seen it, and it still just hurts my brain every time. I'm joking. It's not on Google. Anyways,
Fox, I feel like we could compete in a fast food triathlon.
I do every single day, actually. So
no,
I feel like we need to hold this as an event after 4 rounds of Armada.
that's exactly
the only thing after 4 rounds of Armada is clearly the Patron tequila, right, Fox?
Ooh.
No,
Lord,
not an entire low ball glass. Absolutely not.
Oh Lord, Jesus Christ. Okay, we derailed. Gorn, when you compare Trench to Tarkin / Garkin, Oscar the Grouch, garbage supremacy. Anyways, he looks like good value. Does he look like good value? Is this a good value brand, or are we going back over to Kmart to find whatever brand they still have on the shelf that's generic?
Oh, isn't Walmart best value? Is that what it is? I can. Is it great value, best value, whatever it is?
I think it's legitimately great value. But anyways, go ahead.
It's great value. Yeah.
Okay, well there we go. So I love Trench. I want him to work, but he's too expensive, and it's so difficult to make him be worth spending the 36 points on him. I love the idea of what Trench is. I love that you get 4 dials with him. But when you put him in a fleet, you are essentially sacrificing an entire squad to put points towards your commander, and it's really, really tough to make it worth it. So I think he might look like good value compared to Imperial Tarkin, but I mean Garkin is just really, really good because of the way that the JAR faction works. So I really don't see him as a good value proposition compared to anything, let alone the best commanders in the game like Agate and Ozzel and some of the others that we will eventually have a tier list that we can debate and yell at each other about.
You heard the man first. Trench is the dollar store general version of every other commander. So remember, his email address is paul.clorn at... Hey, Fox, what's your opinion on the situation?
Well, you said dollar store general. It's dollar store or Dollar General. It's 2 different stores. You can't...
$20 there. $20 there is a dollar store general somewhere in the United States.
General Dollar Store?
$20.
I think Trench is trash. You can quote me on that. And put that on the front door of Dollar Store General.
don't forget to put that also in the clip at the very beginning. That's the one. You know how you keep yelling at us for timestamps?
That one's definitely going in the start.
No, that's tongue in cheek. I think Trench has a place, and I think people forget that there are resupply cards that can give you a really good hint on how to use Trench really, really well. I think people,
and for the love of God, stop using Trench for squad.
Yeah, I mean he's good. He's good with squads, sure, but he is not the de facto squadron commander in the Separatists. I'm kind of tired of seeing that take. He's just not, and we just got to get over it. I think we've seen some really good concentrate fire builds come up. Me and Mac have postulated that he could be a Separatist Ozzel, which I think would be super fun. No one's really done anything with that yet. I don't know. But yeah, he's not the de facto squadron commander for Separatists for sure.
Karneck, what's your take?
Trench needs more tools to work effectively. That's my hot take. And again, with the factions for both Republic and Separatists released, they have a lot of tools in their toolkit, but it's pretty obvious that there's more tools that they need to really get on par with either Rebels or Imperials. It's not that they're not competitive, but you can just see that they're lacking things. And I feel like Trench has more tools that are just not available to Trench yet. Otherwise, as mentioned, I have seen this build with a Munificence with Trench that's got Watt and projection, because I hate Watt with passion. That's another hot take. I hate Watt with passion. I want him to burn. I'm glad Anakin cut his head off. That freaking upgrade card, oh my god. Do you know what it is when you see like one ship get regenerated like 12 hit points in like one turn?
Yeah, I do, because someone on this podcast plays that MFR.
But that's where I've seen Trench used most effectively, is like you said, either in navigating while spamming those concentrate fires in the dials, or again navigating and spamming those engineering tokens into dials, and that's where I feel Trench right now his usefulness lies in.
Oh my lord! Well, folks, ladies and gentlemen, fleas and
Hey,
germs.
wait! I have breaking news. I have literal breaking news because it was just posted.
Hold
Fox?
on.
Fox?
Yes.
Second and
We're
third
going over to
at
Fox
Nova
Omega.
were CIS.
Well,
Wow.
Well, not for the whole tournament though.
No, on day one. Day
Yeah.
1A.
Hey, who
2
was
and 3
it?
were CIS.
Who was it?
It was. Let's see. Let me open up the little thing here. Joseph Mulligan and Paul Heaver.
Oh, hey, good job, guys. That sounds awesome. I'm
So
excited
Joseph
to see those
Mulligan
fleets.
was second with the same number of tournament points, 31, and lower MOV. And Paul Heaver had 29 tournament points. And so yeah, they did well.
Oh, dude, I'm
Are
excited
there-
to dig into those. That's awesome.
Are there any
Yeah,
of my
no,
Garbage Patch Kids in there?
There was no Garbage Patch Kids in the top 10.
Garbage Patch. What is?
Wow. I love it. I love it.
Oh, my babies.
Alan's gonna kill us, man. He's just gonna kill us. It's gonna be great. All right, Whiskey. You want to close us out? And don't forget to have Kid Derek pump GSG one more time.
Yeah, I'm gonna do all the stuff and the things. Thanks, Dad. Gosh.
Anyways, that's how it concludes our show, the Armada Podcast from the bridge of the Recusant. Before we leave, let's go ahead and give a big shout out to
Prime Director Karneck. Before this minion here concludes his statements, please let them know where they can find you and how they can contact you.
You mean I'm still in command? The Emperor will
Yes.
speak to me.
Yes, my lord.
We
So
stand
for
here amongst my social medias.
oh god, not anything of my put out. No way. For again, Golden State Games, we'll put out a link for the event packet. Again, that's November 5th and 6th in the San Francisco area. You can look at that packet. It has all the pictures of all the support we have, has all the information, links you to the registration. Again, make sure if you sign up to attend, use that discount code. We also are getting hotel discount codes, as many as we can try to accommodate for. And in general, I want to say thank you to the Armada Podcast for having me on. I've had a great time, and I sincerely hope that we can do more content in the future. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have you back, but yeah, definitely really interesting to have. I'm looking forward to seeing you TO a bunch of these events, because I feel like you'll get an idea of like what's going on at a higher level of Armada.
No, I don't know what's going on. Nope.
Thank you, my liege, for giving that wonderful, rousing speech. Wait, no, please stop. Get off.
Hey, get off the mic. Go. Get back in the dungeon with you. Out. Ugh. Freaking germy things. Anyways, that concludes our show. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you one more time. And remember, fly safely.
Thank you for listening to the Armada Podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, keep up with the show on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Armada Podcast. Join us on Discord with the link in the show notes. Until next time.